During the dinner I organized with some friends, the one who never pays showed up for the celebration. But I had a plan. My name is Nicole, and I need to tell you this story. I'm 28 years old. I've worked at a digital marketing company for 2 years. And until recently, I was one of those people who always avoid conflict. You know, the type who'd rather swallow frogs than create confusion. That was me. But some situations in life force us to show who we really are underneath the facade of being nice. It all started when Tiffany arrived at the company. She was 31, impeccable blonde hair, always well-dressed, and a confidence I secretly envied. On her first day, I remember thinking, what an elegant woman. If I had known what was coming. The first signs were subtle. During the welcome lunch we organized for her, when the bill arrived and everyone started calculating their share, Tiffany suddenly became very busy on her phone. "Oh, guys, sorry. It's my mom calling with an emergency," she said, leaving hurriedly. "Can you divide for me? I'll transfer later." Of course, she never transferred. The following week, during a happy hour, same thing. Tiffany ordered 3 expensive cocktails, went to the bathroom when it was time to pay, and came back saying her card had a system problem. Lucas, who's always too kind for his own good, ended up paying her share. I watched all this with a mixture of disbelief and, honestly, admiration. How does someone manage to do this without feeling shame? And the most impressive part, she did it so naturally, it almost felt like coincidence. This pattern repeated for months. Tiffany always had a creative excuse at the last second. "I forgot my wallet in the car." "My bank app is down. Emergency call," always with that sincere expression, like it was just bad luck. Meanwhile, I noticed she drove a brand new Audi, carried bags that cost more than my monthly salary, and got her nails done at the expensive downtown salons. Her desk was always cluttered with shopping bags from luxury brands I'd only seen in magazines. During group lunches, she'd forget her wallet. At after-work drinks, she'd order the most expensive cocktails, but mysteriously rush out right before the bill, promising to transfer later. She never did. After 6 months of this behavior, I realized it wasn't bad luck, it was a system. Tiffany had mastered the art of exploiting her colleagues' goodwill. She counted on our politeness, our desire to avoid confrontation. And the most infuriating thing, she wasn't struggling financially. Quite the opposite. She flaunted a lifestyle we could only dream of. I started mentally documenting every incident, every flimsy excuse, every broken promise. I didn't know it then, but soon I'd have the perfect opportunity to use that information. Honestly, I started to feel like a fool for letting it go on. Not just for myself, but for people like Lucas, who works overtime to support his sick mother, or Zoe, who just moved to the city and was still trying to find her footing. Then came that lunch. Tiffany was in top form. She ordered the most expensive item on the menu, a grilled salmon for $1.45. The rest of us chose cheaper options, and right when the bill came, oh no. "Guys, my dentist just called. My root canal is inflamed. I have to go right now," she gasped, grabbing her purse. "Can you guys divide for me? I promise I'll transfer today." Spoiler, she didn't, and on Monday, she strolled into the office flaunting a new hair color and cut that easily cost $300. When someone complimented her, she smiled and said, "Oh, I went to my usual salon. Did hydration, brows, nails. You know, gotta take care of myself, right?" That's when it clicked. It was never about emergencies. It was about priorities. To Tiffany, looking flawless was essential. Paying her share of dinner, optional, because there was always someone willing to cover for her. Then came the brownie incident, and it changed everything. It was Zoe's birthday, our 25-year-old graphic designer, sweetest girl you'd ever meet. She moved from Oregon recently and was still adjusting to big city life. To celebrate, she brought a tray of her grandmother's special brownies. "It's a family recipe," she said proudly in the break room. "Imported chocolate and Oregon peanuts. My grandma always made them for my birthday. 12 perfect brownies, each topped with a single peanut." A handwritten card read, "Thank you for making my first year here so special." Then Tiffany walked in, late as usual. She spotted the brownies and, without asking, devoured half the tray. I watched in shock as she ate one after another like they were hers, not even bothering to read Zoe's sweet little card. When Zoe came in to invite everyone and saw only 4 brownies left for a team of 15, her face just fell. "Tiffany," she said softly, trying to stay composed, "I made them for everyone to share." Tiffany didn't even blink. "Oh, sorry," she said, licking her fingers. "But they were kind of dry anyway. You should use a better recipe next time. Maybe less flour, and this chocolate tastes cheap, like supermarket brand." You could see the tears forming in Zoe's eyes. She'd spent over $100 on imported ingredients, woken up at 5 a.m. just to make something special, and now she was being mocked for it. Colleagues started trickling in. Marcus grabbed one of the few remaining brownies. "Wow, Zoe, these are delicious. Did you make them?" "Yes," she replied, voice shaking, "but I guess they didn't turn out very good." Something in me snapped. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about basic decency. About protecting kind people from emotional predators like Tiffany. She hadn't just crossed a line, she obliterated it. Then came the final straw. A week after the brownie fiasco, we ordered Hawaiian food for lunch. Friday, end of a long week. Spirits were high. Lucas splurged on a $1.40 poke bowl with salmon and tuna. "This is my once-a-month treat," he said with a smile. When the food arrived, Lucas was on a critical call, closing a 6-month deal with a client from the West Coast. He gestured to us that he'd be quick and left his bowl in the break room with the others. Tiffany walked in, saw the poke bowl, no name on it, didn't ask, didn't hesitate. She opened it, sat down, and ate it. Every last bite. Lucas came in 10 minutes later looking around confused. Hey, has anyone seen my poke bowl? A dead silence. Tiffany smiled and shrugged. Oh, was that yours? Sorry, I thought it was up for grabs. Anyway, it was delish. That's when I knew what I had to do. And believe me, I did it. She started eating. It wasn't an innocent mistake. She looked around, saw that no one was paying attention, and simply appropriated the most expensive food that had been ordered. When Lucas finally managed to end the call 15 minutes later and returned to get his lunch, he found only the empty container. In the trash. Tiffany, that was my poke bowl, he said, still trying to process what had happened, pointing to the container she had just thrown away. Oh, I thought it was mine, she responded without even stopping chewing, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. It was just a misunderstanding. But you didn't even order a poke bowl, Lucas insisted, visibly trying to stay calm. You ordered quinoa salad. It's there, on the table, with your name on the container. Tiffany shrugged with an indifference that was almost impressive. Well, I already ate it now. There's no way to undo it. Besides, that salmon was kind of tasteless. You should complain to the restaurant. Lucas, normally the most patient person in the world, completely lost it. His voice rose several tones. You can't just take other people's food. This is unbelievable. I was looking forward to this all week. Wow, how rude. Tiffany replied, acting shocked and putting her hand on her chest in a theatrical gesture. You don't need to yell at me over a misunderstanding. What aggressiveness is this? Honestly, Lucas, I thought you were more mature. She left the office all indignant, leaving Lucas without lunch, without money to order another, because he had spent everything on the poke bowl she devoured, and on top of that, being treated like he was the villain. It was the most impressive performance of manipulation I had ever seen. In a matter of seconds, she transformed Lucas from victim to aggressor, and still walked away as the offended party. That night, while driving home, I couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened. Zoe, humiliated. Lucas exploited and then made to feel guilty, and me, always watching silently, always avoiding confrontation, always being the polite person who doesn't want to cause problems. But more than anything, I couldn't forget Lucas's expression when he realized he wouldn't have lunch. He had worked all morning without eating anything, saving his appetite for that poke bowl, and the way Tiffany managed to make him feel guilty for being upset about losing it, it was diabolical. I got home furious but clear-headed. My boyfriend David works as a chef at an Asian fusion restaurant downtown, and I knew exactly how to use this connection to my advantage. It was time for Tiffany to meet a version of Nicole she hadn't met yet, the version that doesn't accept being stepped on or watching good people be used like disposable napkins. I called David that same night. Love, I need a favor. Do you guys still give discounts for corporate groups? When he confirmed, I smiled for the first time in weeks. Finally, I had a plan. The next morning, I sent an email to 8 people from the office, including Tiffany. Hey guys, how about we organize a get-together this Friday? I found an incredible restaurant that gives discounts for groups. It's at Sakura Fusion, 7 p.m. The discount's on me. Some close friends warned me about including Tiffany on the list. I just smiled mysteriously. Trust me, I said, this time will be different. I chose Sakura Fusion strategically, not just because of David, but because of its location. It's on the 22nd floor of a commercial building, with a single elevator, controlled entrance. Once you're up there, it's practically impossible to leave discreetly without everyone noticing. Also, the dishes cost between $35 and $65. Not exorbitant for a classy place, but expensive enough to make any escape attempt very awkward. David guaranteed me a private table tucked away in the back corner, away from exits, away from the main floor. Perfect. Throughout the week, I watched Tiffany at work with a new lens. Now that I knew what to look for, I could see the micro-manipulations, how she always positioned herself away from the bill, how her emergencies magically aligned with payment time, how she manufactured exits so casually. David helped me plan every detail. You sure you don't want to tell me the full plan? He asked mid-week. Just trust me. I replied, and make sure our table is isolated. I need it to be impossible to leave without everyone seeing. On Thursday, Tiffany tried fishing for details. Nicole, what kind of food do they serve at this place? She asked with that innocent smile I now recognized as calculated. Is it very expensive? I don't want it to be embarrassing for anyone. The irony of her worrying about embarrassing situations nearly made me choke. It's Asian fusion, I replied casually. Prices are reasonable for the quality. David got us a good corporate discount. You'll love it. Finally, Friday arrived. I spent the whole day with butterflies in my stomach, but I was ready. I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early to confirm everything with David. He had reserved the exact table I asked for, and the far back with a stunning city view and no possible discreet exit. Anyone trying to leave early would have to pass through the entire restaurant. The bill will be presented as you asked, David assured me, and our staff is fully briefed. No excuses. No card issues, no app problems. Everything's locked in. The group began arriving at 7 sharp. First came Lucas and Zoe, still a bit wary. You sure this is a good idea? Lucas whispered, just watch. I said, this time is different. Next came Sarah, our account manager, along with Miguel and Amanda from finance. Then James and his boyfriend Kevin, who also worked with us in IT. Tiffany, of course, was the last to show up. She entered the restaurant like she owned it. Black dress, high heels, confidence cranked up to 100. The dress alone looked like it cost more than my monthly rent. And the shoes, I was positive they were the $200 Laboutins I'd seen in the shop window just days ago. What a beautiful place, Nicole, she exclaimed, looking around with genuine approval. You really have such good taste, and what an incredible view. It must have cost a fortune to get this reservation. The first 30 minutes were normal. We talked about work, weekend plans, the latest Korean drama series. Tiffany was in her element, boasting about her shopping trips and a recent getaway to Napa Valley. I spent a fortune on wines, she laughed, but when you find a 1998 Cabernet Sauvignon, you have to grab it, right? Then came time to order food. Everyone else, they studied the menu like students before finals, clearly worried about prices. Lucas chose a teriyaki chicken for $1.38. Zoe went for the $1.32 salmon salad. Sarah and the others made similarly cautious choices. Tiffany, though, she acted like she was ordering at an open bar. "I'll have the premium sashimi combo," she said without hesitation, pointing to the most expensive dish on the raw menu, and also the special tempura shrimp as an appetizer. I discreetly scanned the menu. The sashimi, $1.58, the shrimp, $1.42, and how about we order steak for the table? She continued, already waving over the waiter, the premium one. "Do you have Jun, my Daejinjo?" Before anyone could protest politely, Tiffany had already ordered a bottle of steak for $1.85. "It's on the house," she chirped. The moment had finally arrived, guys, to celebrate our friendship in this wonderful place Nicole found. Of course, on the house meant it would be divided among all of us, raising each person's bill by another $1.10. During dinner, I watched fascinated as Tiffany executed her usual performance. But this time I was prepared. She completely dominated the conversation, talking non-stop about herself, her apartment redecorating plans, and her ideas for the next Caribbean vacation. "I'm thinking about Turks and Caicos," she said, gesturing with chopsticks full of $1.58 sashimi, "or maybe the Bahamas. Those all-inclusive resorts are divine, right? Of course, they cost $3.00 a week, but you can't put a price on relaxation." She also monopolized the shared dishes I'd suggested for the group. We had ordered edamame gyoza and a tataki appetizer to share. Tiffany consumed at least half of everything, as if it were her personal meal. "Wow, what wonderful gyoza," she exclaimed, taking the fourth in a row. "You guys have to try them." "Oh wait, are they finished? What a shame." Her audacity was incredible. She ate as if she hadn't seen food in days, which was ironic considering she regularly frequented expensive restaurants. The difference was, this time, she was really paying for everything she consumed. When desserts were served and the atmosphere became more relaxed, I discreetly signaled to the waiter. It was time for the most important part of my plan. David had already instructed the staff on how to proceed, and everything was running perfectly. The waiter approached and announced, "Excuse me, everyone. The bill came to $580 for 8 people. That's $72.50 per person. Would you prefer to split the bill or each pay individually?" That was when Tiffany immediately stood up, like a conditioned reflex. "Oh guys, I'm feeling so sick," she announced dramatically, bringing her hand to her forehead in a gesture she'd used dozens of times before. "I think it was something I ate. Must have been that salmon. Sometimes raw fish doesn't agree with me. I'll just go to the bathroom to freshen up a bit." She left hurriedly, leaving only her Prada bag on the chair. A calculated move, of course, to signal she'd obviously return soon. I waited exactly 5 minutes, timing it on my phone before acting. "Guys, she must really be feeling sick," I said, feigning concern. "I'll check if she's okay." Carefully, I opened her bag in front of everyone. It was an invasion of privacy when done publicly and with plausible justification. Inside, I found only the essentials: expensive makeup, imported gum, brand, name perfume, and her Audi keys, no wallet in sight. "How strange," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "There's no wallet here. Maybe she left it in the car." I took the keys discreetly. "I'll check if it's in her car. Maybe she forgot it." In truth, I had a very different plan for those keys. That night, while driving home, after the most revealing dinner of my life, I couldn't stop thinking about how everything had unfolded exactly as I expected. Tiffany had shown her true colors again, but this time I was ready. David had asked me earlier in the week if I was sure about the plan. Now I knew the answer was a resounding yes. It was time for Tiffany to learn that some people don't tolerate being exploited forever. What she didn't know was that I had been documenting everything, not just her behavior that night, but months of manipulation, and now I had concrete evidence of the luxurious lifestyle she maintained at the expense of others. The game had changed, and for the first time in a long time, I was in control. I left the restaurant and headed to the parking lot, Tiffany's keys in hand. My heart was racing, but I felt more determined than ever. I wasn't doing anything illegal, just checking if her wallet was in the car like any good colleague might do. Her silver Audi was parked close to the entrance as always. Tiffany had a habit of arriving early just to grab the best spot. I used the keys to open the trunk. What I found exceeded all my expectations. There were at least 6 shopping bags from expensive stores scattered inside: Nordstrom, Saks Fifth Avenue, Coach, even a small blue bag from Tiffany & Co. Clothes with tags still attached, brand shoes in untouched boxes, jewelry wrapped as if ready to be gifted. Quickly, I started photographing everything with my phone, documenting each luxury item Tiffany had bought recently. A $400 Theory dress, $600 Jimmy Choo shoes, a brand new $800 Coach bag. The amount of luxury packed in there was obscene, but what really shocked me were the receipts. I pulled a few from the bags and snapped pictures of those too. Most purchases had been made that same week, between Monday and Thursday. The total I managed to document, over $2,000. In just 4 days, one receipt especially stood out, $300 spent at a spa on Tuesday, the same day Tiffany forgot her wallet at lunch. Another showed $500 Sephora splurge on Thursday, the same day she asked Lucas to pay for her drinks because her bank app was down. I returned to the restaurant ready to confront her, but Tiffany still hadn't returned from the bathroom. 10 more minutes passed before she finally reappeared, wearing a sickly expression that was pure performance art. "Sorry guys, I'm really not well," she began, one hand on her stomach, the other on her forehead. "I think it's food poisoning. That salmon must have been spoiled. I'll have to go home immediately." She made a dramatic pause. Looking around the table with an expression of someone fighting nausea, she asked, "Can I transfer my share tomorrow or at the beginning of the week? I promise I won't forget." It was the same promise she had been making for months and never kept. I calmly placed my phone on the table with the screen facing up, showing photos of the luxury purchases. "Interesting," I said, keeping my voice serene and controlled, "because from what I saw in your car, you spent more than $2,000 on shopping this week. I'm sure $72.50 won't break your budget." The silence at the table was deafening. You could hear the restaurant's ambient music and the distant noise of conversations from other tables, but our table was completely mute. Everyone looked alternately at me, at the phone, and at Tiffany. Tiffany became visibly pale but tried to maintain the farce. Her voice, however, had lost its theatrical confidence. Those purchases were gifts I was buying for other people, for my mother, for my sister. I swiped the screen and showed a specific photo of a receipt. "This $400 theory dress is in medium size, exactly your size, and this receipt shows it was paid with your personal credit card, not as a gift." I showed another receipt, and here $300 spent at the spa last Tuesday, the same day you forgot your wallet at lunch and Lucas had to pay your share. Tiffany's expression quickly changed from pale to red with anger. She realized she had been completely cornered with no possible escape. "These Jimmy Choo shoes." I continued, showing another photo, also in your size, and this Coach bag in the photo. It's exactly like the one you used yesterday at the office. Without escape, and with 7 people looking directly at her, Tiffany finally gave up the performance. With hands trembling from anger and humiliation, she took her phone and opened the bank transfer app. $72.50. She muttered through clenched teeth, typing the amount with an aggressiveness that made the phone shake in her hands. The transfer appeared on my phone instantly. For the first time in months, Tiffany had actually paid her share, and in front of witnesses. The rest of the dinner ended in uncomfortable silence. Tiffany remained seated but didn't say another word. The others talked in low voices, clearly processing what they had just witnessed. When we finally got up to leave, Tiffany was the first to go, without saying goodbye to anyone. She simply took her bag and left the restaurant with quick, hard steps. "Wow, Nicole," Sarah whispered while we waited for the elevator. "How long have you known about all this?" The following Monday, Tiffany initiated a subtle but devastating defamation campaign. I already expected a reaction, but the speed and intensity with which she acted surprised me. It was as if she had spent the entire weekend planning her counter-offensive. She started early, arriving at the office before everyone else and positioning herself strategically in the kitchen, where she knew people would pass to get coffee. When Amanda arrived, Tiffany was already there, with red eyes as if she had been crying. "Hi, Amanda," she said in a fragile voice I immediately recognized as another performance. "Do you have a minute? I need to vent to someone about what happened on Friday." Throughout the morning, I watched Tiffany execute the same scene with different people. For each colleague who appeared, she told a slightly different version of the story, always painting herself as the victim of a cruel and humiliating situation. "Nicole attacked me publicly. I heard her whispering to Marcus from accounting. She violated my privacy, went through my personal things, and humiliated me in front of everyone. I've never felt so embarrassed in my life." For Rebecca from HR, the story had other details. I was really feeling sick, with suspected food poisoning, and even so, she forced me to pay. She didn't show even a bit of empathy or compassion. And for Tom from marketing, she added, "The worst part is that I'm going through some financial difficulties I prefer to keep private. My father is sick and I have many medical expenses. I thought she would understand, but instead I was cruelly attacked." Tiffany's narrative was brilliantly constructed. She mixed elements of truth with convincing lies, always positioning herself as the vulnerable party. She painted our confrontation as an unprovoked attack by a cruel person against someone who was genuinely in need. Most impressive was how she could modulate her voice and expression for each person. With men, she used a more fragile, almost childish tone. With women, she was more indignant, appealing to female solidarity. With supervisors, she emphasized issues of professionalism and a hostile work environment. Honestly, she told Jennifer from communications, "I thought Nicole was more mature. I never imagined she could be so envious and petty, just because I have a better car than hers." When Lucas told me about the rumors that were spreading, I felt a mixture of anger and admiration for Tiffany's strategy. She had completely transformed the narrative in less than 48 hours. Some people are starting to question what really happened on Friday. Lucas warned me during lunch. "She's saying you invaded her privacy," added Zoe, "and that it was all a misunderstanding, and that she's going through financial difficulties. Like, her father is sick and she has many medical bills to pay." I knew I needed to prepare adequately for this war of narratives. Tiffany had proven to be a master at manipulation, and I couldn't underestimate her ability to turn the situation in her favor. I spent the entire week meticulously collecting evidence, like a detective building a case. First, I recovered all the screenshots of old messages where Tiffany promised to transfer later but never did. I had at least 15 different WhatsApp conversations over 6 months. Then I dove into her social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Everything was public, and it was a gold mine of contradictory evidence. Her posts showed a lifestyle completely incompatible with someone in financial difficulties. There were photos of expensive trips, a weekend in Napa Valley in September, a getaway to Miami in August, a spa resort in Scottsdale in July. Each trip easily cost more than $2,000 based on the hotels and restaurants she tagged. The restaurant photos were especially revealing. Dinners at sophisticated places at least 3 times a week, always with expensive dishes and premium wines. In a photo from August, she was holding a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne that cost more than $300. Celebrating another finished project, said the caption. Life is too short not to give ourselves the little luxuries we deserve. #blessed #work hard play hard. I also collected written testimonies from Zoe about the brownie incident and from Lucas about the stolen poke bowl. Both wrote detailed accounts, including the exact words Tiffany had used. Zoe's account was particularly touching. She not only ate my brownies without asking, but criticized me in front of other colleagues, saying they were dry and that I should use better ingredients. I had woken up at 5 a.m. to make something special for everyone using a family recipe and expensive ingredients I brought from Oregon. I felt humiliated and devalued. Lucas was more direct. Tiffany simply took my food and ate it, then refused to pay or order another dish. When I confronted her politely, she made me look like the villain. It was pure and simple manipulation. I created a detailed list of all the events where Tiffany had avoided paying. Dates, approximate amounts, witnesses present. The list had more than 20 different incidents over 6 months. Through a mutual friend on LinkedIn, I also discovered her behavior at her previous job. Apparently, Tiffany had done exactly the same thing at the public relations company where she worked before. She did the same thing there. My friend told me over the phone. Always borrowing money for lunch and never returning it. When she left the company, she owed at least 5 different people. By the end of the week, I had a complete dossier on Tiffany's behavior pattern. This wasn't just about money. It was about a lifestyle built on systematic exploitation of others' goodwill. During happy hour the following Friday, Tiffany decided to execute her final revenge plan. She had chosen the perfect moment, end of the week, relaxed environment, and 15 colleagues present, including some who weren't at the dinner and had only heard her version of the facts. She waited until everyone had at least one drink and the atmosphere was lively. Then, as if it were a sudden impulse, she asked for everyone's attention. Guys, she said, lightly tapping the table, I know it's not appropriate to talk about this here, but I need to clarify some things about what happened last week. The bar became quieter, with everyone turning to her. It was exactly the audience she wanted, a group large enough for maximum impact. I was attacked and publicly humiliated by Nicole. She began, her voice trembling with apparently genuine emotion. In front of you, my friends and work colleagues, and this over a misunderstanding about a restaurant bill. She paused for dramatic effect. I was really sick that night, she continued, feeling bad with what was clearly food poisoning, and even so, instead of receiving support and understanding, I was embarrassed and attacked. Her tears seemed genuine as she spoke. What hurts me most is that I'm going through a difficult time financially. My father has health problems, and I have many medical expenses. I thought I could count on my colleagues' understanding. She didn't finish the sentence, letting the silence carry the implication that she had been treated cruelly and insensitively. It was a masterful performance. She had transformed a confrontation about manipulative behavior into a story of bullying against a vulnerable person. Several people began to murmur in sympathy, exactly as she had planned, but little did she know. I came prepared. People at the table seemed genuinely moved, especially those who didn't know the full context. I let her finish completely before standing up calmly. My heart was racing, but my voice came out firm and controlled. Since we're talking publicly about this, I said, connecting my phone to the bar's projector I had borrowed earlier, I think everyone deserves to see the complete picture. What happened next was one of the most intense experiences of my life. I had prepared a presentation that I mentally called Tiffany's Behavior Timeline, and I was about to show 6 months of evidence to 15 work colleagues. The first screen showed photos of luxury purchases I had taken in the restaurant parking lot. These photos were taken in Tiffany's car last Friday. I began, keeping my voice calm and factual. More than $2,000 in purchases, made in the same week she claimed to be going through financial difficulties. I showed each individual receipt, highlighting dates and amounts. Tuesday $300 at the spa, Wednesday $800 on a Coach bag, Thursday $500 at Sephora. The second part was screenshots of WhatsApp conversations. Here we have 15 different conversations over 6 months where Tiffany promised to transfer money later, and never did. I read some of the most revealing messages. Oh guys, my bank app is bugged, I'll transfer tomorrow for sure. Or I forgot my wallet in the car, but I promise I'll transfer on Monday. All these promises were never kept. Meanwhile, the third section was devastating. Screenshots from Tiffany's social media showing her luxurious lifestyle. Photos at expensive restaurants, trips to resorts, purchases at designer stores. Each image was dated and accompanied by the approximate value based on the locations and items shown. This dinner at the French restaurant cost at least $200 per person. I explained, showing a photo where she was holding a wine bottle I had researched afterward. It cost $150. This trip to Napa Valley in September based on the hotel she tagged cost at least $500. The fourth part. Testimonies from Zoe and Lucas. I read the complete account of the brownie incident and the stolen poke bowl, allowing everyone to hear exactly how Tiffany had treated our colleagues. After eating half the brownies Zoe made especially for her birthday, I read Tiffany said, they were kind of dry anyway, you should use a better recipe. You could hear people whispering, "Wow," and "How cruel," while I read. The fifth section was about her previous job. Through a reliable source, I discovered Tiffany had done exactly the same thing at her last company. Multiple people reported borrowed money that was never returned, and a consistent pattern of avoiding paying her share at social events. Finally, I showed the complete chronological list, 23 documented incidents in 6 months, with dates, approximate amounts, and witnesses present. The presentation lasted 10 minutes. The silence in the bar was total. All allegations of financial difficulties were contradicted by visual evidence of extravagant spending. Every story of misunderstanding was now a part of a clear, systematic pattern. When I finished, I looked directly at Tiffany. She was pale as a ghost, without words to refute such concrete and comprehensive evidence. "This is the information I have," I concluded. "Each person can draw their own conclusions." Confronted with irrefutable evidence and the presence of 15 witnesses, Tiffany had no way to maintain her victim narrative. There was no possible excuse to explain how someone in financial trouble could spend thousands of dollars on luxuries while systematically exploiting her colleagues. The group's reaction was immediate and unanimous. There was no discussion, no debate. The evidence spoke for itself. Sarah, our manager, was the first to speak. "Tiffany," she said in a tone I had never heard her use, "this is absolutely unacceptable. This behavior stops here, now." Marcus, who had been one of the most sympathetic to Tiffany's version, shook his head in disbelief. "I can't believe you manipulated us this way." Tiffany tried one last desperate defense. "You guys don't understand," she began, but her voice had lost all theatrical conviction. "Things aren't as simple as that." "What's not simple?" interrupted Jennifer. "Spending $800 on a bag and then saying you can't pay $70 for dinner." "Or humiliating Zoe after eating her brownies," added James, visibly irritated. From that moment on, Tiffany was officially banned from all office social events. It wasn't a formal declaration, but a tacit, collective understanding. No one would invite her to anything anymore. No one would accept her excuses. And no one would be exploited by her again. In the following days, it was fascinating to watch office dynamics shift. Colleagues who had been silently affected by Tiffany finally felt safe to speak. Rebecca from HR told me Tiffany had borrowed $20 from her for emergency gas 3 months ago and never returned it. Tom from marketing revealed she always asked for rides to events and never offered gas money. Amanda mentioned Tiffany had forgotten to pay her share in the collective gift for our boss's birthday. "I always found it strange," said Miguel at lunch, "but I never wanted to seem petty, complaining about $20 or $30 here and there." "That's exactly it," I replied. "She counted on our politeness and our reluctance to create conflict over small amounts, but when you add it all up..." It was impressive how widespread the problem was. Tiffany had affected practically the entire team, always using the same method. The amounts were small enough not to justify confrontation, but large enough to accumulate serious benefit for her. Lucas calculated that, just from the events he remembered, he had paid over $200 extra covering Tiffany's share. "When you put it on paper," he said, "it's kind of scary how I was exploited." Zoe admitted she had started avoiding social events altogether because she didn't know how to deal with Tiffany. "I thought it was just me," she said. "I thought maybe I was being too sensitive." 3 weeks after the presentation at the bar, Tiffany requested a transfer to another department. Officially, it was for professional growth, but we all knew better. She could no longer function in an environment where her behavior had been fully exposed. The transfer request was approved quickly. Sarah had already briefed the upper manager, who seemed relieved to solve the problem without having to escalate it formally. On Tiffany's last day, she cleaned her desk in silence. There was no farewell party, no card, no "we'll miss you." She simply took her things and left. Some people felt uncomfortable with how definitive the ostracism was, but most agreed the consequences were appropriate. As Sarah put it, actions have consequences. She created this situation with her own choices. After Tiffany left, the office environment improved dramatically. People started organizing events again, without fear of being used. Friday happy hours became fun again. Group lunches flowed smoothly. No awkwardness when it came time to split the bill. More importantly, we had created a healthy precedent. Everyone now felt authorized to confront toxic behavior before it became a pattern. We learned that good manners don't mean accepting exploitation. I became a kind of silent heroine of the group, the one who finally had the courage to stand up to what everyone knew was wrong. But what made me most proud was protecting genuinely good people like Zoe and Lucas. The biggest lesson: sometimes the only way to deal with people who systematically exploit others' goodwill is to confront them, with concrete evidence and real consequences. Politeness and patience are virtues, but they should never be used as weapons against us. 6 months later, I can say my life changed in ways I never expected. Not just because I got rid of Tiffany, but because I discovered a version of myself I didn't know existed. For years, I was the person who avoided conflict at all costs. I preferred being exploited rather than creating uncomfortable situations. I thought being polite meant tolerating anything, even when it was clearly wrong. The Tiffany case taught me otherwise. I learned there's a huge difference between being kind and being a doormat. Genuine kindness comes from a place of strength and choice, not fear of confrontation. When we allow people to exploit us because of our politeness, we're not being noble. We're being complicit with destructive behavior. Most importantly, I learned that when we don't confront toxic people, we're not just allowing them to hurt us, we're allowing them to hurt other people too. Zoe didn't deserve to be humiliated, Lucas didn't deserve to be exploited, and how many other people had Tiffany affected in previous jobs because no one ever confronted her adequately? In the following months, I continued organizing dinners with the group, but now, with a completely different dynamic, people felt free to be genuine without fear of being exploited. Our events became more frequent and more fun because everyone knew they were in a safe and respectful environment. Lucas returned to being the kind and generous guy he always was, but now, with healthy boundaries, he learned to say no when necessary and not feel guilty about protecting his own resources and well-being. Zoe flourished completely. Without Tiffany to undermine her confidence, she became one of the most creative and collaborative people on the team. She even started bringing her culinary creations regularly to the office, knowing she would be genuinely appreciated. Sarah, our manager, confessed to me months later that she had noticed Tiffany's behavior but didn't know how to address it without concrete evidence. "You did what I should have done as a leader," she said. "You taught me the importance of documenting problems and confronting them directly." The most interesting of all, our experience became a kind of legend in the office. New employees eventually heard the story, always told respectfully, focusing on the lessons learned. And this created a culture where exploitative behaviors were quickly identified and stopped. A few months later, I received an unexpected message on LinkedIn. It was from a woman named Jessica, who had worked with Tiffany at her previous company. "Hi, Nicole. I know this might seem strange, but a mutual friend told me about the situation with Tiffany at your office. I wanted to tell you that you did the right thing. She did the same thing to us for almost a year before being transferred. No one ever had the courage to confront her adequately. Thank you for finally doing it." The message made me realize that Tiffany probably had a behavior pattern that extended for years, maybe decades. How many work colleagues had been affected? How many genuinely good people had been exploited and humiliated? This gave me a sense of closure I didn't expect. It wasn't about revenge or making Tiffany pay for what she had done. It was about interrupting a destructive cycle that had probably affected dozens of people over the years. David, my boyfriend, observed the entire transformation up close. "You're different," he commented one day, more confident, more assertive. "It's like you found your voice." He was right. Confronting Tiffany had given me access to a part of myself that I had suppressed for years, the part that knew how to defend what was right, that wasn't afraid of uncomfortable situations when necessary, that could protect vulnerable people from predators. I started applying these lessons to other areas of life. At work, I became more willing to question decisions that didn't make sense and propose alternatives. In personal relationships, I established clearer boundaries and stopped accepting behaviors that bothered me, just to avoid conflict. A year later, I received a promotion to team manager. My boss specifically mentioned my ability to handle difficult situations in a mature and effective way as one of the deciding factors. As for Tiffany, I learned through occasional comments that she continued the same pattern in the new department, but for a much shorter time. People already knew her reputation, and when she tried to repeat the same behaviors, she was quickly confronted. Eventually, she left the company completely. I didn't feel joy about this, nor satisfaction from revenge. Actually, I felt genuine sadness for someone who had chosen to build a life based on exploiting others instead of developing genuine relationship and contribution skills. But I also felt proud of having contributed to creating an environment where people like Zoe and Lucas could prosper without fear of being exploited, where genuine kindness was valued and protected, not taken advantage of. Today, when I organize social events, I'm always attentive to group dynamics and behaviors that might indicate exploitation or manipulation. Not in a paranoid way, but in a protective way. I learned that creating healthy environments is active work, not something that happens automatically. I also became an informal mentor for people dealing with similar situations. Several times, colleagues from other departments came to ask me for advice on how to deal with manipulative or exploitative people on their teams. My answer is always the same. Document everything, collect evidence, confront with facts, not emotions, but mainly remember this: protecting your own dignity and that of other people isn't cruelty, it's responsibility. The story with Tiffany taught me there's a fundamental difference between people who make occasional mistakes and people who systematically exploit others. We all forget sometimes, we all go through temporary financial difficulties. But when there's a consistent pattern, combined with a lifestyle that contradicts claims of difficulty, you're dealing with something very different and me. Well, I continued organizing dinners with the group, but now I knew exactly how to identify and deal with freeloaders before they could cause damage. More importantly, I learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is protect good people from those who want to hurt them. The most valuable lesson from all this, that you can be a fundamentally good and kind person without being a doormat, that establishing healthy boundaries doesn't make you cruel or petty, it makes you responsible. And that protecting your own dignity, and that of others isn't optional when you truly care about creating a better world. Today, when I see similar situations happening around me, I don't hesitate to act. Not aggressively or vindictively, but firmly and based on facts, because I learned this the hard way. Silence in the face of exploitation isn't virtue, it's complicity. And that's my story about how an apparently ordinary person discovered they had enough strength to face an experienced manipulator and protect an entire group of genuinely good people. It wasn't about revenge or humiliation, it was about dignity, mutual respect, and the courage to do the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable. And that was the story of how Nicole discovered that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, and that sometimes protecting good people requires the courage to confront toxic behaviors. What did you think of Nicole's attitude? Did she go too far, or do exactly what needed to be done? Leave your opinion in the comments, and tell me, have you ever been through a similar situation? Have you ever had to deal with that person who always forgets their wallet when it's time to pay? How did you react? If you liked this story and want to see more content about toxic relationships, emotional manipulation, and how to establish healthy boundaries, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Next week, we're going to talk about warning signs in friendships and how to identify people who only show up when they need something. Don't miss it. And remember, you deserve to be surrounded by people who respect and value you. Never accept less than that. Until next time, and thank you for watching.